Hello, everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Friends. And we're always in search of people who are really making very, very sincere effort to bring some kind of constructive change to the world. And we see it as change that's benevolent, change that makes an impact and does make a difference. And I have an old friend. I don't want to say by age, but a longtime friend, and I've been friends with him. My late husband was friends with him, and we're very close with his wife as well, who is here to tell us about the work that he's been doing. And before I introduce the book, I just want to tell you a little bit about Dr. Elliot Levy, who is a distinguished endocrinologist who was in private practice in Aventura for many, many years. His resume just goes on, but I'm just going to say he's also a clinical professor of medicine and an expert in linguistics. And now, because he's always on the move, he's always doing something new, and this is going to interest you, I am sure. He has written a book called, I hope you can see that, Live to 120, A Proven Protocol for Baby Boomers. And I want to tell you that, can you see that? I hope you can. You don't have to be a baby boomer to really get a lot out of this book. I mean, I'm looking at things that I feel that any age, and I even want to start out by saying something that was written by someone quite close to him. And this person said, I'm not a baby boomer, but because of my parents are informed, presented in this book, are the informed presented in this book is applicable to me and my entire family. The time to start is now, not waiting. Kudos to the authors for informing us of what we can do right now. So being healthy and being healthy and really being able to move forward with your life is what this book is all about. Elliot, Dr. Levy, I'll call you Dr. Levy. Welcome to the program. I'm delighted to have you on the program. And I am amazed. This book is really more, I don't even want to call it a book. It's like an encyclopedia of everything you need to know to be healthy. So I want to say something about the book, which is, it's heavily researched. And I don't have no idea how long it took for you to research this book, but give me an idea of what it took.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for the beautiful introduction and those kind words. Yes, we do go back many, many years, and it's a pleasure and an honor to appear with you and to try to answer your questions and help educate the listening audience. I first got interested in the whole concept of wellness probably 25 years ago. My wife suffered some medical issues, and at that time, we decided to look and see what we can do to improve the quality of our life back then. And that we know that it involved changing our diet, changing our exercise habits, and we really did the best that we could. About 7 or 8 years ago, when I turned 70, I started to get a little bit concerned about myself, because fortunately, I have been in good health, and I think I take good care of myself. But that was the time when I really decided, let me see what science can tell us about things that we can do now. Not the stuff that we can speculate on for the future, but what do we have available to ourselves right now that might improve our odds of living longer. So everything that I talk about are suggestions, but they're based on scientific research, on peer-reviewed papers, and items that are published in the medical literature. So everything that I refer to is actually proved and published. And I think that makes it very easy for me to make suggestions for people, because they're not just my own ideas. These are ideas that researchers who've been working in this area for a long time have suggested. So that's the kind of information that I share with the readers.
So we're talking about information on healthy eating. We're going to get into this, healthy eating, healthy everything really, spiritual life, how spiritual life can really help us, traditional and complementary medicine, the future of medicine. It goes on and on. What I find so interesting is that I'm thinking about myself and people that I've known, and so many people they turn to this, they turn to that, they go to this, not necessarily a medical doctor, but some kind of a complementary type of a doctor. And you'll ask them, well, how did you find out about them? And what's usually the answer? Oh, a friend told me about them. Someone is doing that. And so do you find that a lot of people are really resorting to things to take care of themselves and have better health, especially when they're not well, and nothing's been documented with the kind of research that they're doing?
Right. You certainly shared a lot of comments there, and I'll try to comment on each of them individually. So I look at things that we can do right now into two areas. I label them as low tech and high tech.
Mhm.
Low tech really refers to environment or lifestyle changes, things that we can do right now that are really based on real observations. Then there's the other half, which I call high tech or biologics, things that are being explored in research laboratories, but are not necessarily really ready for mass use. And unfortunately, you're right. People who want to live longer and live healthier have to have resources of where to turn. And unfortunately, we as medical doctors don't learn this stuff in medical school, in residencies, or in our fellowship, unless you have a specific interest in that. But the world of medicine in the United States tends to revolve around treating diseases rather than preventing diseases. So the doctors themselves don't always know the information, and many times they don't even take care of themselves properly. So patients need to have a source of information if they want to make those kinds of changes in their lives.
This is kind of, like I said earlier, like an encyclopedia of things that you have found work. And some of the things are kind of things that people have been getting into, but it gets into it much deeper. So let's talk about healthy eating. A lot of people, and I'm one of them, thinks that I'm eating healthy, and then I start reading your book and I'm saying, well, what I thought was healthy isn't necessarily healthy. I thought it was, being a vegetarian. A lot of my friends are vegans. You are a vegan, right? Basically a vegan. But what I'm doing, maybe I'm eating a certain kind of fruit or eating a certain way, and it's not necessarily healthy according to your research.
Okay,
So what do you tell people? Read the book, but
look at the things that are available that we as individuals can do. One is to eat properly. Second is to exercise properly. Third is to keep using our brains. Fourth is to have a sense of community. And fifth is spirituality. And each of them have a role to play in an individual. And everyone has to figure out what works for them. But my feeling is most people don't even have enough information to make proper decisions. So I feel that life is about making good decisions. It's much more than things like, where do you want to go to college, or what team do you want to support in football, or choosing your wife, or knowing where to live. Those are certainly givens, but there are a lot of other choices that people need more information. They need to know when they should eat, what types of food they should eat, how often should they eat, how much should they eat, what should they do if they have a bad day with eating, how to handle themselves when they go out to a restaurant. What do they do when people are around the table are drinking excessively and you don't like to drink alcohol? There's a whole lot of ideas that you have to mull over in your head so that when the time comes, you can make the right decision. It's no different than the way I was taught as a physician, is that especially in my field of endocrinology, we learn a lot about relatively rare diseases so that when we encounter something that is more complex, we're totally prepared. And people are not that way when it comes to choosing foods. And we have a lot of obstacles. When you look at the newspaper, there are always columns about new restaurants, about recipes, places to go to eat, about romantic nights, whatever you're looking for, that's there. The food industry is a huge industry, and they publish all kinds of advertisements and commercials to try to entice people to buy their products without really understanding what's really good for us and not. the meat industry, the dairy industry, farming industry, they're created to make money. And they make money by doing whatever they can do to influence people to buy their products. So we have to try to re-educate people about understanding what is the best way to eat, what are the things that you should eat, what are the things that you should stay away from.
So how did you come to this yourself? Because as I said, you are a vegan. I know you exercise religiously. Speaking of, I was going to say spiritually, but religiously, and so does Debbie, your wife. You've made a lot of choices. You go to, oh, I didn't mention who you wrote the book with is, where is his name here on here? Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Clement PH.D. He is one of the directors of Hippocrates. And that's, I hope you can see this book right now. Can you see it on the screen? Good.
Yes.
Okay, because I can't see it. Hippocrates is world famous, for a lot of cutting edge, just different ways of eating, different ways of living. Not everybody can go to the Hippocrates. They can't take the time off. Maybe the cost is too much. I don't even know what it costs, but I figure it's pricey probably.
Yes.
But I feel that you offered a lot of things in this book that have been researched through him and through your visits to Hippocrates over the years.
Okay, let's go back and understand what is diet. Diet has two different meanings in our society. What most people think of is going on a diet.
Mm-hmm.
They're not happy with the way they look in clothes. They can't get a job because they're overweight, and there's a prejudice against that in our society. They may have the medical problem like diabetes or hypertension,
Mm-hmm.
so they need to go on a diet to lose weight because that's what their doctor tells them to do.
Right.
So what happens is they pick some plan, and I have a list of maybe 15, maybe 20 different diets. And in reality, most of the diets are just rehashed old diets. They're all the same. And they work and they don't work. The problem with going on a diet is twofold. First of all, the body has an amazing ability to protect itself. And the body will look at an acute diet, means you go from wrong eating to really strict eating, and the body perceives that as starvation. So there are certain hormonal changes that occur very quickly that slow down the body's metabolism so that a person may lose weight quickly at first, but then that tends to slow down. The other thing that happens is that some people just get bored. If they're on, let's say, a low carbohydrate diet, they just get bored about not being able to eat certain things, and pretty soon they go off of it. And then what happens is called recidivism, which means people gain back quickly all the weight that they lose. And then they're back on their same uphill course of eating too much and having too much fat in their body. Now, the other concept, the one that doctors talk about, is a healthy diet, meaning all the food that you consume over your whole lifetime. And people have certain diets depending on where they live, on where they work, on the kinds of things that are good for them. And we tend to feel that that is what we're trying to achieve. Now, unfortunately, most of the diets that are out there are promoted by a person or an individual, and quite often they're associated with buying food or buying frozen food or buying books without really caring so much about what works for the individual. The only diet that really seems to have been studied in any excess is what's called the Mediterranean diet. And I'm a firm believer of the Mediterranean diet. And in general, it's more or less the diet that people live in the countries around the Mediterranean Sea. But that doesn't say very much. And in reality, they're all different. It really is emphasis on fruits and vegetables, mostly locally grown. It has limited amounts of meat. Some of them have no meat, some have no chicken. Sometimes they have a little bit of wine, sometimes a little bit of red wine, but they're all very different. But the idea is relatively low calories and relatively fresh, locally grown food. That is the essence of the Mediterranean diet. So what we did, we said if the Mediterranean diet works, why don't we take it to the next step and eliminate all animal products? So
Mhm.
that's meat and chicken and fish and eggs and dairy. And then it becomes what is now known as plant-based diet. And
Right.
plant-based diet seems to actually have quite a lot of benefit as to preventing people from developing heart disease. So we think that what's good for the heart is probably good for the brain, for the kidneys, for the blood pressure. So we tend to recommend that kind of an eating habit for everybody. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to, that's the only way you can do it. It doesn't mean you have to be that way the rest of your life. It's suggestions that we have. If you want to live a healthier life, you should strive for a plant-based diet.
Well, what's interesting to me is that it has become a lot more popular these days. Wherever you look, there could be, you look like they say in the magazines or newspapers, restaurants, there's often some kind of new kinds of foods that people can eat in a restaurant or wherever they're going, or that they can make at home. Something has changed, I think, in our society. But what I feel is it's probably still a very small group of people who have made these kinds of changes, right?
I agree with you. And it gets even more complicated. I like to look at the checkout lines of a grocery store.
Yeah.
And I see on the right are all these magazines, and
Hmm.
there's always magazines about plant-based diet.
Mhm.
It means that it's becoming more popular because people want to buy those. And yes, there are a few plant-based restaurants that are popping up all
Yeah.
around. Unfortunately, a lot of them don't stay in business for a long period of time, but they are there. And I'm very conscious of going out to a restaurant. And what I do and what I recommend to my readers and to my own patients is before you go to a restaurant, go
Mhm.
to the website of the restaurant. You'll always find their menu published, and then click on it before you leave the house and figure out what is going to be something that you can eat. And sometimes you won't be able to find anything.
Right.
Then you may want to tell your friends that maybe we should try to find someplace else. Or what I also say, take a look at the side dishes that they order and see if you can find something that's healthy.
Yeah.
But then even in that, there's healthy and then there's better than. So let's just say you make a decision to order mashed potatoes. So mashed potatoes are from potatoes, they're vegan.
Right.
If they're added butter or truffle oil or a lot of salt, they go from something that might be okay to something that is probably not. And the same way with French fries, the same way with certain kinds of desserts, that just because they don't have meat or milk in them doesn't mean that they're healthy for you. So you just have to be aware so that you can make, as I said before, good choices. But you're
Well,
absolutely right. There are plenty of options in just about every restaurant. And I shared this with you. There's a website that if you're really stuck, it's called
yeah.
Happy Cow,
Mhm.
happycow.com. And I go to it from time to time,
Yeah.
especially if you're traveling to another city. And it gives you an idea of what's available in the area that you're living in. And then many times I'll actually explain it to you. They'll say something like, well, there's a few vegan options.
Mhm.
And just use it accordingly.
Well, a lot of people really have also chosen to eat at home a lot more. A lot has to do with the expense of eating out in restaurants, or as you say, the quality of food. And the Brahma Kumaris, I would say, a big amount don't even eat out, or if they do, they have to for reasons, or they do not constantly. Not like every night of the week they're out. I mean, they don't. And also, there's something, and I don't know if you include this in your book, is the energy of when you cook your own food and vegetarian food or vegan food. It's you cook it in a state of meditation with no stress and really trying to feel very peaceful, and the food actually is affected by that. It's there is some connection between our thoughts and our feelings and what we eat. So I'm seeing more of that, and I'm seeing friends that never, that were out all the time are saying, no, we've chosen not to eat out all the time. We've chosen to try to eat home more of the time. And so I see that shift, but I do understand it's not possible for everybody. But I would like to move on to, I mean, you have so many topics in here. I really would like to move on to spirituality and
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second.
sense
Let me
of
make a comment
what does that
about,
mean? Yeah,
let me get to it in a second. Let me make a comment about going out to dinner.
yeah,
Because going out to dinner is more than just a place to find food to meet your body's needs.
right.
For many people, it's a sense of socialization. And
Yeah,
if you work hard, long all day in your career, sometimes you come home and you want to be with other people. So going out to dinner becomes as much of a social event as it is a nutritional event.
which connects to really your whole the area that you cover about a sense of community and spirituality. And part of it is that we do need to have connections in our life. We can't just live, on an island ourselves. That it's very important in terms of your health, not just because we want to have a lot of friends or get together with people and be busy. It has to do with really feeling better and feeling healthier, and not feeling healthier, being healthier when you are in connection with others.
Right. I think that's very important. And
Yeah.
there's two studies that I could comment about. One is the concept of the blue zones. The blue zones are areas around the world, there's 5 of them and possibly a few more, in which people happen to have a higher incidence of living to over 100. Sense of community is extremely important to those 5 areas. The other thing that happened was a natural event, which was the COVID epidemic, in which people were forced to stay in and not leave their place of residence. And it was extremely difficult for single people in urban areas like New York or Chicago or Los Angeles, because they basically had to stay in, order their food in, and there was an extremely high incidence of mental health issues that occurred in people during that time. And I had a chance to read an excerpt written by a professor at Columbia University, and basically that's what she said in so many words, that her whole life fell apart when she wasn't able to go out and have dinner with her friends. So I think that that statement is very important, and it's one of the 5 most important things, is that you have to have a sense of community, you have to have a sense of purpose in life, and you really have to make an effort to be with and really to help other people to be a successful life.
Well, I like what you're saying, and I really like what you're saying about helping other people, because service is important. Service meaning just feeling that you're here to help others. It's not all about you getting ahead and you being good at what you do. And a lot of people get caught up in their careers. They get caught up in, being more successful. And it's often not until later in life that they realize, well, there's maybe more that I can do. There's something that I can do to be of service. Oh, do you think that there's a lot of people that it's too late? It's never too late, ever. Okay. But they don't have this realization about the importance of having these connections and also helping others in some way, whether it's reading to children, like you say, children that need help. It's, people tell me that they get great pleasure from helping in food lines, in Miami, that it's kind of a spiritual experience to go feed, homeless people on Thanksgiving. There's a lot, for us, the Brahma Kumaris, meditation, teaching people meditation, because that's what we do, kind of a spiritual discipline. We say it's a religion of peace, but just teaching people how to be peaceful. People are stressed today. So I think there's that part too of health, of being.
This past summer, I had the opportunity to meet Dr. Vivek Murthy, who is the Surgeon General of the United States. He's a brilliant young man. And he talked about the loneliness epidemic. Loneliness epidemic that's rampant in the United States. And he went over all the statistics and shared all the facts with us. And his antidote, and that was his word, is service. And he said, if you really want to break the cycle of loneliness, consider doing service. And you can define that in any way. You can be a greeter at Walmart. You could go and volunteer at a school. You could help out an election. But whatever you do, you have to feel that you're helping people. And in my section in the book about retirement, I talk about things that people need to do in anticipation of retirement, because it's a major stress when you give up your career and basically you do nothing, and that's hard for people to do. So what I suggest is you find things that you enjoy doing, things that you're good at, and most importantly, things that you help other people. And if you need to work and still make money, then that is a factor too. But for the most part, if you've done proper planning, you should have enough money to live on, or maybe you should retire. And then you have to then focus on doing things to help other people.
It's an amazing thing, it really is, that just getting outside of yourself, always thinking about yourself. And that's what often people do in their careers, right? Just getting ahead and making more money and being good at what they do. I mean, those are things that, especially when you're young and you kind of have to focus on moving ahead. But as you get older, and again, I don't mean it's like you're getting old, it's like you start to realize what's important in life. I don't even think it's something like, oh, I should do that. It's a feeling of what makes me happy, right? And what fulfills me. And there's nothing more fulfilling, I don't think, than helping people in some way, and coming up with something that you can do, like you say, to help.
Okay, so one of the questions that people ask me when they hear about my book is, why do you want to live to 120? So I came up with a few suggestions. Maybe you want to dance at your grandchildren's wedding, you want to see great-grandchildren, you want to travel around the world, whatever is your reason for living longer. But really, none of those are important. What's really important is you want to spend as much time as possible with people who you care about and people who care about you. And once you're at that stage of your life, then you can understand why you have to do certain things. And many people get extreme pleasure from being around their grandchildren for
Yeah.
If that's how you feel, then that's very important. Be part of their lives, assuming their parents will let you. Be part of their lives, and you'll get immense satisfaction. And if that's not an option for you, there's plenty of other things that you can do. If you enjoy culture, volunteer at a symphony or a ballet company. If you want to work with kids, volunteer at a kids center or a learning center or a school, but do something to keep your mind busy and also know that you'll help people. And most of the people who volunteer, let's say in one of our reading programs, they come about saying that they got a lot more out of it than they know that they passed on to the kids. So those
and
are the kinds
it takes
of
making effort. It takes just making some effort, or, thinking about what is it at this point in my life can I do? But, I really do love, this idea that it can start right now. You don't have to wait until you're, retiring or thinking of retiring, that you can begin to think about what gives you pleasure, and what gives you not just pleasure, satisfaction. I know myself that there was a point in my career, and I remembered very well, that I was so caught up in just interviewing famous people, because we got to interview. In those days, you could get a lot of these famous people. They were all selling books or theater tickets or whatever, and I don't think it's as easy anymore because they're not traveling around. Most people are doing it on Zoom and stuff. But there was a point where I just kind of said to myself, is that all there is? Like that song, and this feeling that there was something more I needed to do. And what came to me personally was, I have to do something for the community. I can't just be caught up in my work and my shows and everything. And what I came to was starting to do shows to do with helping in the community, and start to feature people that were doing these things. And I remember that shift, the shift from, oh, I interviewed this famous person this week, it was so exciting, to I interviewed this person that's not even well known, but they're making a difference. They're helping kids in a community that needs help, or they're going to a senior citizens home, and they go and they sing to the people I've met, that they sing or they perform for elderly people. And I had that turning point, and that was even before I got into meditation. So do you think in a way people it's possible to have a little bit of a wake-up call before you even think about giving up your work or anything like that?
So when people are asked to make a change, it's hard for them to do it unless something happens. Unfortunately, it's usually an event. Sometimes it's being diagnosed as a bad disease. Sometimes it's a close relative that's very sick. Sometimes it's a child. Whatever it is, that's usually the strongest motivation to do something. Person has a heart attack. They're scared to death that they're going to die. So they want to do things now to try to help prevent more problems in the future, or if maybe if they're lucky, reverse some of the things. And I've become a really big believer that there's a lot of diseases in our society that are really caused by what we do to ourselves. That has to do with the food we eat, the exercise that we don't do, the stress that we're under, the lack of sleep that we get, the lack of involvement in our community, and not really taking care of ourselves. And worse is not being aware that we're not taking care of ourselves until something happens. But I really feel type 2 diabetes, that heart disease, that hypertension, maybe cancer, maybe Alzheimer's disease can be prevented if we start doing the necessary interventions right now. And if right now it means you're age 45, that's great. If you're 70, it's not too late, because there are studies now coming out of many places, including California, in which they're actually reversing heart disease and reversing mild dementia. So there really is something to this. This is not somebody's idea. This is something that's actually been shown. And if I can share that information with people so that now's the time that they can make these changes, then maybe we'll all have an important role to play in their lives.
Well, that's very heartening to hear what you just said. It's never too late. And if you just pick up one thing, I mean, from you or from anyone, well, I need to change my diet, if I need to do that, or I really don't do enough exercise, or, let me go volunteer. If you can make even one little change, it leads to another and to another and to another, doesn't it? And suddenly, you're feeling happy. I mean, I think happiness is, personally for me, it's one of my great medicines for myself, or important medicines, just to be happy. When I'm frustrated or I'm worrying about something, I can feel the body shift into something not so good.
May I comment about two other areas?
Sure.
I think maybe our listeners would like to hear.
Yeah.
One is the concept of spirituality. I'd like
Please
to tell
do.
you how that might fit in. This summer, I had a chance to hear a man named Dr. Francis Collins speak. And he is world famous as the person who led the group that sequenced DNA. So he's a well-established scientist. And he retired, and he's a newborn Christian, and he's the first to tell you that. And his interest now is spirituality and science. And afterwards, during the question and answer period, I said, Dr. Collins, are you aware of any information that people who live a spiritual life will live longer? And he said, absolutely. And the very next day, he sent me a very current paper that actually goes into that. And I'll just share a little bit about that. They define this in two ways. One is called religiosity, and the other is called spirituosity. They're a little bit different. Religiosity, maybe I pronounced it wrong, refers to all the rules that each religion imposes on people. The spiritual part is basically being a good person. Take care of yourself, share what you have and what you know with people, be kind, be helpful, be cooperative, be a good parent, be a good child. And how you live your life is very important. And you don't have to have both. There are some people who are very religious and very spiritual. There's some people who are very spiritual and don't follow the rules of any given religion. And unfortunately, there's people that don't have anything. And a lot of times there's people who have nothing and try to hide themselves behind religiosity. And that's probably just as bad. But the idea is most people want to be good people. They just need to think about it and to do that. And the studies showed that people who follow that have a 33% less incidence of heart disease. And how it's mediated is well explained in the paper. But that really gives some credibility to the concept of just being a good person and taking care of yourself and your friends.
That is beautiful. And that's, I think you want to say something more, and please say it.
Well, I was going to talk about
tell me.
Going out to dinner.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right. That more and more people are eating at home for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, when we took a survey of just ordinary people who walk in off the street and are over the age of 65 or 70, probably nearly every family goes out to dinner 6 times a week, 5 times. So when they go out, they have to be prepared. What are they going to do? because going out to dinner can be a really stressful time in your life. Here you try real hard all day to eat healthy, only have organic food in your house, doing everything right, and then your friends from across the street ask you to go out to dinner with them. So you go out to dinner and you go to a restaurant and the food is terrible, the selections are horrible, you eat too much, you drink too much, and you come home and you feel really badly. So rather than having a book with a lot of recipes that none of my patients are going to follow because we all go out to dinner, we have chosen 62 different ethnic restaurants from all over the country. And we didn't mention their names, but we copied their menus. And then my co-author, Brian, is very shrewd and very good at nutrition. And he goes through individual menus and said, what would he order if he went out to dinner? And that's beyond the talk of today. But if people are really interested in that, I think that's one of the reasons that separates our book from the other books about this topic.
Well, I think there is a lot in your book. You know, as you say, live to 120. Not everyone does want to live to 120, but they certainly would like to live longer, right? Nobody wants to just say it's over right now. And a proven protocol for baby boomers. And it's not just for baby boomers. This book has everything from how to eat, how to live in community, how to be able to connect with others, you know, everything. Complementary alternative medicine. You talk about that. But again, you don't just speak about it. You have the research to show, the proven research. And I think that's very important because, again, as I said earlier, people can wander around, you know, doing this, going to that, whatever somebody told them that this person can help you, and you don't ever know if it's working or if it's the right thing for you. But after, you know, going through this book, I realized, you know, it's how important it is to get this kind of research that you've done, and I commend you for all the work that you've done. This is a pretty heavy duty book, and I can't even imagine what it took, you know,
let me
write this book.
Everything in an anecdotic way. Every once in a while, people like to go to Las Vegas, and they like to gamble. And a common place to gamble is the blackjack table.
Yeah.
So when you sit down, you have to know that the chances of you winning any given hand are 42%. The chance of the dealer winning it are 49%. What you want to do is you want to have information to improve your odds. So things like rules about which cards to draw, when to draw, a whole series of different events. But what that's designed to do is to improve your odds of winning. So what I say that life is about knowing what you can do to improve your odds and having a lot of luck on your side. But if you don't know what to do, then you're liable to make mistakes. So again, that's the kind of message that we're trying to give. Here are some things, some suggestions, some recommendations, maybe, of things that you might want to consider to make your life better and hopefully longer.
And you certainly have covered so much in this book. And it's just kind of reminding me of something that happened to me years ago, because I had been talking with my husband's cardiologist, whom you know, well-known cardiologist. And I was always talking to him about meditation, because I, you know, do meditation. And actually, we went to his office for a while and did it as well. But anyway, he was interested. He was always open. But one day he came to me, I think when I went in there with my husband, not that I went there all the time, but, and he just said, I want to talk to you. And I was, what? You know, what does he want to say? And he says, I want to tell you that I read the research, some medical news, you know, news magazine or whatever, or the doctors use. He says, and the research is there, that meditation works. Meditation helps people. Meditation can help heal people. And he was so happy to share that with me. And I'm thinking, you know, you can, through your book and all the work that you do and the speaking that you do, you know, just reaching the doctors is really very important, because a lot of doctors don't believe these things. You know, they hear their patients talk about this kind of treatment and that kind of treatment. They go to alternative treatment. And this book is exactly, you know, the guidebook to helping you focus on or select different kinds of programs that really do work based on, as you say, the medical research. So I thank you for taking the time. I know you're busy. On to your next cause and all your work and everything that you do. And you and your wife, you're both on that same page, which is beautiful. Dr. Debbie Levy, she's helping young people, she's helping children, and you're helping people. And that's a really beautiful thing. It's very inspiring. So thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it.
You can buy the book on Amazon.
Yeah.
Live to 120, and my name is Elliot Levy.
Elliot Levy.
And I'd be happy to share any information with you if you ever want to talk about it.
Great to get to talk with you, and continued success in all that you do.
Thank you so much for having me.
And I want to thank you all for taking the time to watch, and I'm sure be inspired by Dr. Levy.